Picture the Earth right now: oceans, forests, deserts, cities. Now erase all of that. Erase the oceans, erase the forests, erase every living thing on the surface. Now cover everything, from the poles all the way to the equator, in ice. Not a bad winter, not an ice age. Every single inch of the planet frozen solid. The entire surface of the Earth white. That actually happened more than once, and the story of how it started, how it ended, and what came after is one of the strangest chapters in the history of life on this planet. Let's go back about 700 million years. Earth looks nothing like it does today. The continents are arranged differently. There's life, but it's simple. Mostly single-celled organisms in the ocean. Nothing with legs, nothing with eyes, nothing you'd recognize. Then something shifts. Scientists aren't completely sure what triggered it. Maybe a change in the position of the continents reduced volcanic activity. Maybe something pulled too much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Maybe both. But whatever the cause, the planet started cooling. And here's where it gets dangerous, because ice has a property that makes cooling self-reinforcing. Ice reflects sunlight. The more ice there is, the more sunlight gets bounced back into space instead of warming the planet, which creates more ice, which reflects more sunlight, which creates even more ice. Scientists call this the ice albedo feedback loop. Once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop. The glaciers crept down from the poles, slowly at first, then faster. The oceans began to freeze at the surface. The ice spread toward the equator, and at some point, scientists debate exactly when the last open ocean closed over. The entire planet was encased in ice. Temperatures at the equator dropped to what we'd experience today at the South Pole. Average global temperatures may have fallen to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Nothing on the surface could survive. The planet looked, from space, like a white marble. Scientists call it Snowball Earth. Now here's the question: how did it end? Ice reflects heat. Snowball Earth should have been a permanent trap. Once fully frozen, the planet had no obvious way to warm itself back up. But deep inside the Earth, something never stops. Volcanoes. Plate tectonics kept rumbling underneath all that ice. Volcanoes kept erupting, and every eruption released carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But here's the key: with the surface frozen, there were no liquid oceans to absorb that carbon dioxide, no plants to pull it in. It just kept building up in the atmosphere. For millions of years, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It traps heat. And with nowhere to go, the CO2 just accumulated year after year, century after century, for tens of millions of years, until the greenhouse effect became powerful enough to fight back against the ice. And when it finally tipped, it didn't tip slowly. It snapped. The ice began to melt, and as the ice retreated, less sunlight was reflected back into space. More heat was absorbed, more ice melted. The same feedback loop that froze the planet now worked in reverse, thawing it just as violently. Scientists estimate that temperatures swung from minus 50 degrees to over 50 degrees Celsius in a geological instant. The ice melted. The oceans returned. The planet went from frozen to scorching in what, geologically speaking, was almost no time at all. And then something happened that nobody fully expected. Life exploded. Right after Snowball Earth ended, in the geological record, scientists find an enormous burst of new life forms. This period is called the Cambrian explosion. Suddenly, after hundreds of millions of years of simple, single-celled life, complex organisms appeared. Animals with bodies, animals with limbs, animals with eyes. The leading theory is that Snowball Earth acted like a pressure cooker for evolution. The extreme conditions wiped out most life, but the survivors, isolated in small pockets of liquid water deep in the ocean near volcanic vents, evolved under intense pressure. When the ice melted and the planet reopened, those survivors poured into a world with almost no competition. The result was an explosion of biological diversity, unlike anything before or since. You are, in a very indirect way, a descendant of whatever survived that freeze. The complexity of life as we know it, every animal, every insect, every fish, every creature with more than one cell doing something interesting, traces back to survivors of one of the most brutal events in Earth's history. The planet froze. It thawed. And from the thaw, everything you've ever seen alive emerged.